Welcome to another installment of the UIS Coaches Show. I'm Michael Leotta. We are thrilled to have head coach Matt Brock back with us. Matt, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so busy weekend for you up in the Wisconsin Dells. Game against Northern Michigan, a game we previewed last week as a high-level game. We thought it would be an entertaining one, and it did not disappoint. Tough loss for the Stars, losing on the last-second three, but looking at it, if you want to zoom out a little bit, there was a lot to like about what your team did on Saturday.
Yeah, no, we definitely played really well for a majority of the game. Unfortunately, we turned it over too much late and gave them a chance to get it back to a one-possession game. And anytime you're in a close game, in a coin flip, sometimes that coin's going to come up tails. And so we're definitely a lot to learn from and a lot to take from, and as we go forward. Credit to Northern Michigan. They're a really good basketball team, and that was kind of a pseudo home game for them. But a high-level game, an NCAA tournament team, and we'll get better from it.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You took words right out of my mouth. This really was a high-level game. 85-83. The offensive efficiency in this game, I think you guys shot about 67%. I think Northern Michigan shot about 54%. Talk a little bit about that. Some of the stats and breaking it down was really interesting. Northern Michigan, I think, had 14 more field goal attempts than you guys did. Can you talk a little bit about, the game flow and kind of dive us into those stats a little bit more of kind of how this game broke down?
Yeah, so every basketball game is really determined by four factors. So shooting, which is measured by effective field goal percentage, turnover percentage, rebounding percentage, and then free throw rate. And so we won the shooting part of the equation, 72% effective when you count our three-pointers. And then they won the turnover part of the equation. We turned it over 16 times, so they're 8. So we turned it over on 23% of our possessions. So those are the two biggest factors. And then in a close game, sometimes the last two factors can play a part. And they did have more offensive rebounds than us. And then we shot more free throws and made more free throws than them. So, a coin flip game, and it comes down to, one play, but that play could come from anywhere in the game. And when we watched film yesterday, we talked about the mistakes and the breakdowns on both sides of the ball that we had that all could have been, could have decided the game. It doesn't come down to just the last couple of plays. Every play of the entire game is important.
Yeah. Thanks so much for breaking that down a little bit, because in a close game, you kind of, from a fan standpoint, you look at turnovers, you look at rebounds, but you really don't know how that affects it as much. So that was a really good breakdown from that. You mentioned you watched film a little bit. What, late in that game, you said there was a couple turnovers, you had some chances to win the ball game. What really is your team going to get out of this game more so than, just a high-level game? What are you really going to learn that you're going to be able to take in February and March when games get tough and tight towards postseason time?
Yeah, I mean, there were some things that we executed very well situationally, and then there are some things that we didn't quite get what we wanted. We've got some inexperience on the floor in those situations, and when you don't have Jordan Rice, a guy that's been starting point guard for 3 years, you're going to have the ball in some different guys' hands, and so definitely can learn from that. I think the biggest positive I thought is I saw some things, we saw some things offensively and defensively that actually encouraged me about the ceiling of this team. So against a team as good as Northern Michigan, was number one in our region most of last year. They kind of slid at the very end, but we did some things that makes me think, okay, we've got a chance, but we still have a long way to go. So it's early in the season, and we're going to continue to work, but definitely some parts of that game that are very encouraging to us as a coaching staff, and kind of where we could take this team, where we can go with this team.
Nice. And let's go a little bit more in depth. As a fan, you're always watching games, every level of basketball, and there's always that situation when you're up 3 points, possession, you get under 10, 12 seconds. Do you foul or do you not? Always a fun. And of course, you had that situation against Northern Michigan where you did choose to foul with 10 seconds there. But talk to us a little bit about the dynamic of that. How does that work? There's a lot of different ways that coaches think about that and go about that. Can you share just a little bit of just kind of the process of what you go through when you're making that decision, and just a little bit more on that?
There's a lot of factors. And I think the biggest data point for that situation is a guy named Ken Pomeroy, he has the website KenPom, which gets referred to a lot in Division I college basketball. But he did a study on that situation, and basically his findings after studying hundreds of games in college basketball were it's kind of 50-50 either way. So it's kind of up to what you do, and the recommendation is do what you practice. And we practice it. Me personally, as a player, we lost the regular season championship because we didn't foul up 3. We lost in overtime, and then we lost in the NCAA tournament, my last college game, because we didn't foul up 3. We lost in overtime. So for me, I've kind of got that in the back of my mind, so I'm a little more apt to do that. But we haven't always done that, and obviously in this situation, in hindsight's 2020, we wish we hadn't. But you know, there's a lot of scenarios that can happen. But when you think about it, if we're up 3 and there's no shot clock and you have the ball, all right, you might have a 33% chance of making a 3 to tie to send it to overtime. And if it's a 50-50 game, now you have a 33 times 50% chance of losing. If you foul, okay, you got to make the free throws, okay, and then make the first one, miss the second one, get the offensive rebound, kick it out, and hit a 3. So if you add up all those percentages together, the percentages say that. Now, we kind of had a little bit too much time. We didn't take quite as much time as we wanted, and allowed them to come down. But you know, if our defense could have been set, I think it would have been a different story. Yeah,
it's just a fascinating scenario because, like you said, you know, previous history with the coach plays into it. Stats play into a coach. The feel of the game play into a coach. So always a situation that we enjoy watching as fans, and thanks for that little breakdown of, you know, kind of how that goes through from a coaching perspective. Moving forward here, you got some time to practice this week, got a little bit of time off here, but then right back on the road for the Doubletree Classic down in Springfield, Missouri. A couple tough games awaiting us on a neutral floor there. Tell us a little bit, preview that for us if you could.
Yeah, this is a good time for us to have a week of practice. You know, we learned a lot of things that about ourselves through that game, and things we need to improve on, things we need to work on. So we got some time to spend on those and sharpening up those parts of our team. But yeah, great Thanksgiving tournament. We played in it last year. We beat Missouri Southern last year, and then Fontbonne this year. We've got Central Missouri, who's really strong. They're 2-1. They play Quincy on Thursday, and they look like a really a good team, a team that's won a national championship in Division II in recent history. So a big time program. And then we play Union out of Tennessee, who started hot. They're 3-0. They're a pretty athletic group. So we've got our work cut out for us. We intentionally scheduled really tough in the non-con to prepare us for the GLVC, because as I was talking to a coach from a different league the other day, our league is so deep. 1 through 10, 11, 12 are top 100 type teams, and there's not a lot of easy ones on your schedule. So it's good to get used to it. We got a group that's been tested a little bit, so we hopefully strong competition will continue to help us get better, and as we try to play our best basketball in February and March.
Yeah, and we talked about playing the best basketball in February and March, but November 30th through December 7th, you have 4 conference games with 3 on the road. So, coming right around the corner, your team's going to be tested even more. So you feel like Northern Michigan, Union, and the Central Missouri will have you ready, for that stretch, and then be able to, extend past Christmas.
Yeah, I told my wife to make sure she buys extra coffee for the upcoming few weeks, because we've got a lot of basketball and a little time to prepare as coaches. But no, it's exciting. It's what you want to do. Players want to play and they want to compete, and everybody's doing the same thing. The nature of the mega conference world is you start conference play in December instead of January, like historically. So everybody's in the same boat, and we've got a tough stretch with UMSL and then 3 on the road. So we're just going to have to get ready for one at a time and try to get better every day.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thanks for joining us here. Obviously, exciting times coming up in the next couple of weeks. Stars will be back at home on November 30th in the first GLVC game against UMSL. For Michael Leotta, this is the UIS Coaches Show.